Let's imagine for a moment that you're an actor in the following scene. You wake up in a familiar room. The walls, the objects, even the muffled sound of the city outside, everything seems normal. But something is off. Time isn't moving. The clock spins in circles, but never moves forward. The coffee gets cold, but never reaches your lips. People speak, but their voices make no echo. And then you realize you're trapped. But in this prison, there are no locks, no doors, no cages. What's holding you is invisible. The body is free, but the mind isn't. It circles around fixed ideas like an animal pacing inside a cage of thoughts. You try to leave the room, but your steps always lead you back to the same place. It's as if space obeys a logic you no longer control. And then the question cuts like a razor. What if all of this is just a reflection of what you believe to be real? The strongest prison is the one you don't recognize as a prison. A system of beliefs, values, and identities you never consciously chose, but that shape every decision you make. Who you love, who you fear, what you think you deserve, what you believe is out of reach. Have you ever asked yourself who built those ideas inside you? Maybe your parents, or school, or religion. Maybe it was marketing, turning desire into necessity. Maybe it was a culture that taught you to obey without even noticing. And what if all of this, the fear of failure, the need for approval, the urge to be right, are the bricks of that invisible cell? You feel free because no one's chasing you. But what if it's that very lack of confrontation that keeps you in captivity? Why do so many people live lives they never chose, feel pain they don't understand, and repeat patterns they despise? And why, even when everything seems to be fine, is there still a deep restlessness, a quiet emptiness growing in the dark? I need you to consider the possibility that maybe, just maybe, what's keeping you trapped isn't even real. Ask yourself, what if this is the greatest illusion of all? But then, if none of this is real, where does it come from? And why are we so afraid to let it go? That's what we're going to talk about in today's video. My name is Noah, and you're watching the Hermes Code. Let's go deeper. It's not easy to see the cage when it's made of ideas. From an early age, you were programmed. Not out of malice, but inertia. Parents repeating what they heard from their parents. Schools teaching what was approved by systems that value obedience over awareness. Religions shaping human desire through guilt. Companies tying personal worth to consumption. All of this forms a carefully staged theater where you believe you're the main character, when in reality, you're playing a role you never wrote. The hermetic principle of gender explains this perfectly. If the feminine or generative principle is more developed in you, you'll inevitably give birth to ideas that aren't yours. From that, we can conclude that free will is relative. You can't say you're free to choose if your mind is filled with programs that affect that choice. Carl Jung warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's the invisible prison. You think you're choosing, but you're just reacting. The deepest trap isn't in pain, it's in familiarity. The mind prefers a known misery to an uncertain paradise. It reminds me of Schopenhauer, who called it blind will, an inner drive that feeds on repetition, even if that means suffering. Nietzsche, on the other hand, would blame the morality of the time, and the masses, for poisoning the human spirit with resentment and conformity. You are not who you are. You are who you learn to be in order to survive. And the worst part, the more you identify with pain, the more it defines you. And every attempt to escape feels like betrayal. Betrayal of your culture, your family, yourself. Aldous Huxley showed us that modern control wouldn't come through violent oppression, but through pleasure. Constant pleasure dulls the critical mind. Social media, algorithms, likes, and instant rewards create an addictive reality where thinking deeply becomes almost an act of rebellion. And in the middle of it all, There's the quiet pain of not knowing why you feel so far from yourself. You think you're free because you can move. But that freedom is a simulation. You mentally built that idea in your mental body and started acting within the limits of what you were programmed to believe is acceptable. You have desires that aren't yours. Ambitions installed like viruses. Fears you inherited before you could even speak. And every time you try to break free, an inner voice screams, "What if you're wrong? What if you're punished? What if no one loves you?" That voice isn't yours. But it sounds like you. That's what makes it so convincing. The prison isn't in the world. It's in your filter. You see reality through lenses you don't even realize you're wearing. And as long as that filter remains invisible, it will keep controlling you. But what if you could actually see it? What if there was a way to notice what's always been there, camouflaged as normal? The next question isn't what to do. There's something more urgent. What is this doing to you? Because if you don't face the damage it's causing, there's no point trying to figure out how to fix it. Let's open the wound. What's keeping you trapped doesn't beat you down. It lulls you. And that's why it's so hard to escape. It's as silent as a tasteless poison. As invisible as an inherited habit that was never questioned. You don't see the shackles because you've learned to call them life. And that's how the prison shapes you. It doesn't just turn you into who you are. It shapes who you believe you're allowed to be. The human mind builds itself around narratives. But who's writing yours? Many say ignorance is bliss. I'd rather call it a curse. You wake up. You work. You consume. You repeat. You think you're in control. But the real control lies with whoever controls your vocabulary. If you don't have the words to describe your prison, how can you ever escape it? Philosopher and writer George Orwell warned, "If thought corrupts language, language can also corrupt thought." And that's exactly what happens. You've learned to call survival success. You've been taught to call anxiety productivity, and obedience ethics. And the cost of all this? A fatigue that no amount of sleep can fix. An emptiness that achievements can't fill. A life that feels like it's being lived by someone who looks like you, but isn't you. From a neurological perspective, the brain loves to save energy. It automates everything it can. Beliefs, reactions, fears. Every repeated thought becomes a shortcut. And over time, you stop thinking, you just reinforce what you already believe. That's how reality becomes a loop. You suffer but tell yourself, that's just how it is. You long for something more, but your mind replies, that's not realistic. The name for this? Conditioning. Your nervous system has been domesticated. You've become a circus animal that doesn't even know the cage is open, because you've learned to stay still even without chains. Jean-Paul Sartre spoke of this in his famous phrase, "We are condemned to be free." That means deep down, you can choose. You always could. But that freedom is terrifying, because it demands radical responsibility. And when the mind is wounded, traumatized, or numb, it will trade freedom for safety, even if that safety is built on lies. Modern culture reinforces this at every turn. We celebrate appearances, not depth. Likes, not connection. Performance, not presence. The result? A sick society that calls addiction leisure. That treats symptoms, not causes. That rewards masks and punishes vulnerability. And at the center of it all is you. Trying to find meaning in a reality designed to keep you from thinking too much. Because deep thinking makes the system shake. But now that you've started to see it, there's no going back. The inevitable question arises. If what I'm living is an illusion, where is the real? You're closer than you think. But before you get there, you'll need to break one more mirror. You don't need more motivation. You need detox. detoxing the mind from everything that was programmed to keep it tame. Because, listen, your prison was never made of bars. It was built with beliefs. And every true rebellion begins when you dare to doubt the obvious. Before that, there's no point wasting your time with law of attraction techniques, conscious manifestation, or diving deep into hermetic and alchemical teachings. Be realistic, they told you. But no one explained who decided what realistic means. You just accepted it. Like a child accepts that fire burns, before even feeling the pain. But now, you've already felt the pain. And what's keeping you trapped is no longer your fear of the fire. It's an attachment to smoke. So here comes the first step toward liberation. Question what seems most certain. Not what's already controversial, but what's accepted by the crowd as unquestionable truth. Question, for example, that working yourself to exhaustion is a virtue. That feeling anger is immaturity. That the world out there defines your worth. Each of these ideas seems harmless, but they're chains disguised as wisdom. Let me repeat what Carl Jung once said. What you don't bring into consciousness controls you, and you will call it fate. That's why you must descend into the shadows. Not to get lost in them, but to rescue the part of you that was denied. Your repressed anger. Your forgotten desire. Your silenced truth. Because freedom is not living without pain. It's living without censorship. And if you want to escape this invisible prison, you'll have to betray the most dangerous jailer. Your self-image. Who do you think you are? Where did that image come from? Who taught you that you are quiet, controlled, fearful, nice, discreet, guilty? The rebellion begins when you kill that character. And in its place, allow something more authentic to emerge. Something with no name, no shape, no resume. Maybe that's why the alchemists called this process solve et coagula, dissolve and rebuild. It's a symbolic death. But every symbolic death brings real life. Because who you truly are has never been touched. Your essence doesn't get sick. It doesn't shrink. It doesn't hide. It only waits for the moment when you get tired of pretending. And if you've made it to this point in the video, maybe that moment has arrived. Because true rebellion doesn't scream. It silences. And in the silence, it hears a voice you had forgotten. Your conscience. Now, there's only one step left. The most dangerous revelation. The truth that can turn everything upside down, or for the first time, put everything in its right place. You've spent your whole life trying to change your reality. Trying to control your thoughts, adjust your habits, align your chakras, apply techniques, follow formulas, repeat affirmations. And still, something inside you remained restless. Like a tightened rope that won't loosen, even under the best advice. The truth is, you can't change reality while you still believe in it. Because everything you call real was shaped, not by evidence, but by collective agreement. And that agreement was made before you even knew you had the right to disagree. Here's the irony. The mind believes in the prison, and so it becomes real. But if the mind believes in freedom, that also becomes real. Reality, then, is not a fact. It's a reflection. The world you see out there is a mirror of the world you accept within. And here lies the most powerful realization. Nothing that binds you is solid. Everything is malleable. Everything is suggestion. But what about trauma? It's nothing more than a frozen interpretation of an event. The pain. A reaction that was coded as truth. The identity. A story told so many times that it was mistaken for essence. But you are not the story. You are the screen where the story is projected. You are the space before the narrative. The presence before thought. The awareness before the name. And everything changes, absolutely everything, when you stop trying to fix the movie, and start remembering that you are the projector. Consider for a moment. The anxiety that consumes you is not a mistake. It's a messenger. It's screaming that you're trying to control a script you didn't write. And the way out is not to scream back, but to release the script. You don't need a new identity. You need to become anonymous to the old world. Like the alchemist who dissolves the lead until only gold remains. It's not that he creates the gold. He simply removes what is not. Your essence is already free, but it's buried under layers of conditioning, fear, adaptation, and the desire for acceptance. So hear this with an open heart. You were never trapped. The prison was always an illusion, and the key was never lost. It was always inside you, in the silence between one thought and the next. Remember that feeling when something inside you said, "This doesn't make sense," but you went along anyway? That was your freedom whispering. Remember when you cried without knowing why? When you laughed at inappropriate moments? When you desired things you couldn't explain? Behind every forbidden emotion, that was you, trying to escape the mask. And now, finally, you can stop running from yourself. You can breathe as if it were the first time. Look at the world and say, without fear, "Nothing that binds me is real, and everything I am could never be chained." Because true freedom is not about achieving something outside of you. It's about realizing you never were what they told you. You were never fragile, never inadequate, never limited. You are the dreamer, the dream, and also the one who awakens. And maybe, just maybe, this is the quietest and most powerful revolution in the history of your life. Now, close your eyes. Feel what's vibrating inside you. And ask, what in me has always known? That answer, you already carry it. It doesn't need to be explained. It only needs to be remembered. What held you back was never real. And now, you know that too. My name is Noah, and this was my contribution for today. If this video helped you in any way, like it, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Until our next meeting.